As we get into our conversations this week, over the last couple of days, we've been confused, bothered, been in a spot of bother as to, okay, how do things work exactly? When you know that you have a tripartite system in government where the judiciary, where the legislature and the executive work in tandem. One is not lord over the other, but it is across board. But then we start to ask ourselves, the system of government that you have, is it actually working for Kenya? And if it were to work, then what must you do? That we've been at crosshairs with the system and saying, okay, why wouldn't then members of parliament just do what they're supposed to do? All right, well, let's get into it this morning, because that conversation was spearheaded, parliamentary versus presidential system, what works for Kenya. Odhiambo Otieno, political analyst and communication analyst, is with us this morning. Very good to see you in the colour of champions. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Nice to see you in the mustard.
See, this is a man who knows his colours. It's a yellow. No.
Not yellow.
Not yellow.
Taka yellow and the political rally.
Mustache, get it right. Hey, we see that you're in fine form this morning. Good morning, Karibu Sana.
Yeah. Asante sana. Nice to see you for a long time.
Indeed, very good.
I was in Kakamega.
You were? Okay. For all this time, or just
so many things happening there which are atrocious.
Oh no.
Okay.
Boy, I have a feeling that some of that is going to come into this conversation today. Okay. And that atrocity will be shared. All right, we'll talk into it. Kidogo. Dennis has taken us now not to Kakamega, but to the Kakamega for Western Africa. Guinea-Bissau.
Guinea-Bissau.
That's the Kakamega voice.
Well,
that can be interpreted. But anyway,
okay, so
the national team is called the Jurtus. Jurtus.
Okay.
Which means wild dogs.
Wow.
The national football team. All right. So when you go to Guinea-Bissau, in Kenya, you come see lions, hippos, but there you go to see specific hippos that can swim in salty water.
Oh.
Yes. And then it is also a beautiful country, because when you talk about climate change, they have huge mangrove forests, because it is an archipelago where they have several islands then within the country. And they're also big producers of cashew nuts, yeah? Suleiman Yeri should visit Guinea-Bissau, you know? Yeah, but let's go to the proverb. The moon moves slowly, but it crosses the whole sky. The moon moves slowly, but it crosses the whole sky. How would you interpret it?
The moon moves slowly, but it crosses the whole sky. Consistency bears fruit, because the moon moves at a particular pace and goes round the whole sky. So consistency then makes a lot of sense in that interpretation. That if you're consistent at a particular pace, then you will reach the destination. I think that's my simplest interpretation.
And the moon just doesn't care. I will start as a crescent. Then the other is called
just takes shapes.
And then comes full moon. Or decides to disappear and you don't see it.
True. But it is closing.
but it's there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start with some definitions this morning.
Yes.
Presidential system, parliamentary system. What are those?
Good. So these are political systems of governance in different democracies. These only apply in democracies. They don't apply in autocracies. When we're talking about presidential system, we're talking about a popular person being elected as the executive head of state and also the head of government in a nation by way of universal suffrage. A parliamentary system is where we are having power vested within parliament instead of the president. So that means that we have a prime minister who heads the government and who sits within parliament. And we have ministers who are largely elected from within parliament or appointed from within parliament. And a president who is also elected or nominated from within parliament and not from the majority or from the popular vote. Now, these two systems sit in this fashion that when you talk about a presidential system, it is absolute.
Okay.
And perhaps the reason as to why I would like us to share a little bit more about it is because in absolutism, there's no virtue. Whatever exists in absolutism is absolute vices.
Okay.
All right. Now, when you are having a system where there are no virtues, it implies people have a free fall. That's why you see the presidential system structured in a way that the president can never be prosecuted. The president is accountable to none. In fact, to none.
Just to God.
Maybe. Because sometimes they also think that they're better than God in some states. Yeah, they think that they can even take away life. In some states, we've seen it in this part of the world. And in a parliamentary system, we look at the prime minister sitting at the edge of the seat throughout, and issues of oversight being consistent throughout the term, and there's no permanence, as unlike the presidential system. In a presidential system, removing a president is extremely difficult. It brings about military overreach most of the time when they see an opportunity. You saw when people went to the street in June 2024, the military were released into the street. And one of the cautions that people like us give was that is a very dangerous precedence, because the military can exploit it, because power itself, the absolute sense of power, exists in ultimate violence.
To corrupt, absolutely.
Yeah, so if one person is extremely violent, then they beat you to submission, and the military has absolute violence within them. If they say, the president Kachini, what will you do? Will you say that signing papers is what will make you a president? They tell you sit down. Already they've taken over. And once the military are the custodians of the constitution. That's what I've always said, that the military is the only body that can suspend the constitution and rule by decree.
Right. So can two of these systems of government operate simultaneously?
No, they can't.
So how come in Kenya, you had a president, executive power, but then you also had a prime minister who, to some extent, then oversaw certain things and, to an extent, had an element of power?
It was, and that's why actually from 2003 to 2012, we had a mongrel kind of government in this country. Because in the first instance, power was vested in two people, Raila Odinga, the late, and Mwai Kibaki, the president substantive. But remember this fellow called Matere Kereri, who locked the gates of State House, and told Oburu Oginga and Raila Odinga that hakuna serikali ya pembe mbili. Yeah, there'll not be a government that has two centers like now we're having in Senegal, right? And of course that was that. But in 2005, then we had to start seeing a pure division, which means power. We had two very powerful people, one executive, another one lacking in the streets, and commanding half of the cabinet out of cabinet. That shows you how power works. Now, in 2008, the promise that was made in 2002 came to be, and that was Raila to be prime minister. And then what did they give him? It was not a clear premiership. It was a compromise premiership, where you were being given, because we appreciate that you're a man who had the votes, but we are the people with the power. We are the ones who announced, but you're the one with the votes. And then we had that kind of organization where at one point we had Honorable Raila complaining about a half carpet and no toilet, and not even the chief attending the prime minister's meeting. That shows you the level of lack of structure within that framework that led to us having that weak premiership, or a mongrel kind of governance between these two. Parliamentary system dictates that the prime minister is elected from the coalition of the majority in parliament. Absolute presidency or presidential system wants that power comes from the people. Okay? In a presidential system, basically what we're having something called dual legitimacy challenges, where we're having a president getting popular mandate from the people directly. Then you're also having a parliament elected by the people. These two are powerful. These are actually two centers of power. Now, interestingly, in the presidential system, as we have today, you can see, and across the world where there are presidential systems, you will see a co-opting of the parliament and taking over of the parliament. And in some instances, you will find the executive taking over even the judiciary. In some instances, in Kenya, we are lucky that the judiciary has come of age, because people are looking beyond Kenya today. People are looking at their careers beyond the country. They want to go and be judges in ICC. They want to go to the UN, etc. So they've grown. You cannot just close them down in this country. Now, in places where there is absolute parliamentary system like the Westminster model, which is what I love most, there's no harm in pushing out a prime minister at any moment.
You can change them anytime.
Yeah, anytime. You can wake up and say, I'm pissed off with the Prime Minister, Dennis. We are going to pass a vote of no confidence in him. And the state does not collapse because the system is very strong. We don't have to wait for 5 years to have a new president because one day is too long in the life of any person, I believe. Because if we have poor health decisions being made by a presidential system, a parliamentary system will sort it easily. That if it is not working, then during the PMQs, that's the Prime Minister's question, the Prime Minister is held to account. And he knows if you don't, or she knows that if you don't do well, if you don't respond to the people properly, you're going to lose.
And this Prime Minister belongs to a party. As it were.
Belongs to a coalition.
A coalition,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
So they already have a political side. But the system, as you say, is so strong that it holds this individual to account. That regardless of your political affiliation, you will not mess around with the system. And that anybody from either side, in this case, can come and tell you, excuse me, sir, madam, this is not what we agreed on.
Yes.
Can you now
step aside?
Yeah.
Okay. And we don't have to go to the streets. The reason that's why I'm saying that, I have sat, and I'm not a prophet, I have sat and looked at the structure of Kenya, and I want us to dig back into 30 years of our democracy from today. You will find that there's one common denominator or one stabilizer that has helped the country. Whenever the country was going or was edging towards collapse, there's one person who was helping us, and that's Raila Odinga. People know that this gentleman was very altruistic, died to self and gave himself to the country. That even in the instances where many democracies in Africa will not allow, that he knows very well he has won an election, he still stepped back and said, you know what, let's first prioritize the country. Now this fellow is not there. Now we don't have that denominator. So what is happening? In 2028, be it President Ruto coming back, be it Kalonzo getting the presidency, be it Sifuna, whoever comes back to power or whoever gets that power, I can tell you within 2 years, we will have a midterm question. Always, if you dig back 30 years, there's always a midterm question. What is a midterm question? Is that after 2 or 3 years, the government often goes into a reset mode because the time remaining is too short, the time they've covered is too short because it's normally in the middle of the term. Now, when that occurs, the biggest challenge then becomes, how do we move and who do we need to kick out? We have rewarded, now we need to go to legacy. Or we have not rewarded, we need to reward. And also we need to have our legacy projects. Now people are kicked out. When people are kicked out, these people normally, most of them are very powerful. They go back to the streets. We've seen them now coalescing elsewhere. And when they go back to the street, what are they doing? They're preparing to uproot the government as is. Now, when we are having a midterm question, for example, in this country, in 2-3 years from today, the biggest question we'll be having is the debt question still. We will want to run away from it and do however much we want. But we are coming back to the debt question in 2-3 years because we are not able to pay these monies. That's the fact. Now, let's say Rigathi Gachagua gets to be president. A miracle happens and he gets to be president.
Okay, don't say what you think, but okay.
A miracle happens and Kalonzo gets to be president. Or a revolution happens and your friend Sifuna gets to be president. The first question he has to deal with is the debt question. The second question he has to deal with is the economic question for Kenyans, especially the employment thing. The third question he has to deal with is balancing political interests. Now, one of these things must give way for the other to exist. For example, let's read from Senegal. Two gentlemen, popular, both of them. In fact, one not very popular, but now is the president. All going in with the question of change. All of them are in agreement that, hey, this country has a problem. The problem we have is we have a debt issue. This debt issue is disturbing us. We have bad governance issues. We need to correct something here. So let's move then. They go to the presidency. The other one is appointed prime minister. Faye remains as the president. What happens? In 2-3 years, they're already at odds. Why? Faye, being the president, now realizes, oh, wait a minute, something is here that requires administrative spine.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, popular vote or popular interest will not understand. Because once you're elected president, you are now the president. You have to make decisions as a what? As a president. And we all know that the presidency is a club. In the whole world, once you enter the presidency, you have entered a club. And now you'll find yourself at a different level compared to anybody else. And advisors, IMF, World Bank, World, all of them tell you, presidents from former colonies or former colonizers coming to tell you, no, we can do this, we can do that. And the deals that are being made there are too secretive. In fact, in Kenya today, those secrets are declared top secret and you will never access them until 30 years after the regime has left. Can you imagine what Faye could have met when he was elected president? And his intelligence service now comes to him and tells him, so these are the things we're dealing with, Mr. President. Things that you didn't know as a politician running your mouth in the street. Do you understand? So the things now we are dealing with, one is that the loan that we took is not $2 billion. It's actually 13 billion. But you cannot tell the people that it was 13 billion. Because if you say it was 13 billion, we are going to have civic disobedience. If you say it was 13 billion, or IMF is already coming for us. What they want is for us to have economic restructuring of our country. That means we're going to have layoffs. We're going to reduce parastatals. We're going to reduce government employees. We're going to reduce ABC. We're going to freeze development. What does that do for you? Is that the politicians are going to start making noise because the politicians don't have access to the classified information. But you as a president, you have the classified information. And also you've sworn an oath of secrecy that you cannot go around speaking about these things. So once you enter that club, you realize these are the realities you're dealing with. And now it is too difficult. You have a popular prime minister who, by the way, put you into power. What do?
He essentially said, Faye Tosha.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what do? You say, when a prime minister, and they talked, interestingly, unlike Kenya, those guys talked on phone. And they agreed that, I don't like the way you're moving. Faye told Osman Sonko, I don't like the way you're moving. This move is going to hurt me because of ABCD. Then Osman Sonko told Faye, then for me to move in that fashion, because PASTEF is the biggest party, and you still need to form government through PASTEF, then let's sit and talk. But you see, the president could not accept that because the advisors then, the sainthood around the presidency, then tells him no. Because now they too, the kitchen cabinet, they too understand that secret that now they've come to know, to understand after being briefed by the intelligence services there or by the economic, whatever, the superior guys there. What do? You have to push out a prime minister. What does the prime minister do? He goes out back into the streets. What does that do for you in a presidential system? You face political instability. When you face political instability, what happens is that your country is going down. Definitely, it's going down. Senegal, in West Africa, I know you know this better than all of us, is one of the most stable democracies that has never faced a coup since independence. For the first time, if not for this fellow called Osman Sonko today, they would be out in the streets. But the fellow has understood the level of power that he has. And he said, I'm not going to use this power to frustrate the presidency. We're going to use this power to still maintain the course. As much as now I'm coming into the National Assembly, we still have to steer the ship in the right direction, not to destabilize our nation. But how many prime ministers or how many ex-prime ministers will do that in Africa?
Difficult.
There are very few. Please.
Yeah, but I hear you speak in terms of the challenges that we find ourselves in. But then again, if we have a system that works and individuals in these offices who swear to protect sovereignty of nations, then there is no problem. So are we saying that our problem then is the people we have in office, perhaps?
Well, if you study societies properly, you'll understand that societies operate around systems. And societies begin from families. In a family, there's a system. And the system is basically how things run. There are the decisions that are made by children. In fact, children will always have desires. They communicate these desires either by crying or alternative means to their parents or guardians. Then their guardians will sit and ponder about these desires and see if they can meet the desires, then agree on how to meet these desires, okay? Now, once they agree, then somebody, either the mom, or it depends who holds the power, because in many families, mothers actually hold the power in decision making. You can't do anything, they will tell you. Okay? So the mother decides. Now, societies also work in that manner. So the father in a family, for me, I always say, is the leader of that family. The final decision rests with the father. But the governor of the house is the woman. In fact, even you, Aseta, I'm sure, in your house today, you cannot make many decisions of day-to-day running of that house. You cannot even buy a chair in that house unless your wife says yes.
Inshallah.
Even the quality. Inshallah.
Politics.
So, now let's transpond that to the national scale. Are our problems system problems, or are they attitude problems in this country? I can tell you, if you understand societies, you'll understand that the biggest problem we have is a systems problems and not society problems. Because, of course, human behavior is in that particular, and it's always dynamic, it's fast shifting.
Okay. Sorry, so just that we've come to the system. So are we saying that governments and their way of operation were based on the presupposition that a system was going to be in place, that everybody's already agreed, this is the system, we are following it. But now what is going to change? Understanding that human beings by their nature will change or will be a certain way. That it is very difficult for you to put all human beings in a room and tell them to behave the same way. That's why you have a system. What we are not going to do is tell you how to behave. What we are going to tell you is that the system is already in place. Follow the system, do everything else that you need to do. So governments were formed with the basic understanding that a system is in place which ought to be followed. Now, would you say that successful governments are those which follow the system, but that the politics of the day, in terms of how the government will run, then is change malleable, can move?
Very good question. And that's why we always say political goodwill. You've heard of this term. People say, oh, political goodwill. Even for the banks, political goodwill. You go to the market, political goodwill. Why do you think they always talk about goodwill? Because we know that human behavior will always supersede systems. For example, there's a friend of mine, he sat here severally, Joshua Nyamuri. When, I think it was the Swedish embassy or something, that wanted to revamp Jomo Kenyatta sports ground in Kisumu. In that sports ground, just a quick definition, in that sports ground, there were 2 gates only. But people started forming panya routes across the fences. And when they wanted to redo this Jomo Kenyatta sports ground, Joshua, I remember telling me, he took this ambassador and went and sat at a hotel opposite, rooftop of that hotel, and they observed how human beings were behaving and said, don't interfere with their behavior. In fact, enhance it. Because their behavior tells you who they are and how they want their things run. So let's have the goodwill of these people to buy into what we want. And they created about 7 gates on the panya routes that these guys were doing were using. So it became, the sports ground became a place where, would I call it a junction? No, a transition point where people would come and would pass through it. And then they formed an information desk on Kisumu, or about Kisumu, in Jomo Kenyatta Sports Ground. Now let's borrow that and say, in the national scale of issues of governance and systems, human behavior will always supersede systems. And that's why we always say, politics supersede the law. By the way, it does. Because politics will change the law. So when, in a situation where we're having governance questions like we do in this country and any other country, and the biggest question we're having here is the system effective? The system is not effective because it is dependent on one person, who is the president, in an absolute format of a presidential system.
And that cannot be.
It is what it is right now. Because today, study the country critically. Do we have a parliament?
Well, I mean, there's a building and there are people
in it. Yeah, there's a building and there are people in it. But do we have the goodwill? Because we're talking about now human behavior. Do we have the goodwill? Do we have a correct attitude in parliament? Why don't we have it? Is it because there's patronage from a particular position in this country?
Well, let's look at the way things happen in parliament. That it's interesting because people have sat here and told us that there have been no few or very or rather there have been few or no people-centered bills that have come before Parliament have been discussed and then implemented. Others have come and say, well, the business of the day has been what the president's agenda is, and so that's what members of Parliament are going to. We have had things which are current processes in Kenya that have been passed in Parliament where there's been no quorum, and we know what the Constitution says about how you should pass things, and that if you listen, if you because we have the opportunity to do that every day. If you listen to proceedings, which are on record, by the way, if you listen to proceedings, that the lines are already drawn in Parliament, which is a legislative body. The lines are drawn politically.
Yes.
That even somebody who has not been lobotomized can hear that something doesn't make sense. But because of the political side that they are on, they will take that side, even if it doesn't make sense.
So
that's what's going on.
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. If we look at human behavior in regards to the question you are talking, or the comment you're making, you understand that we have the question of morals versus objectives. And I'm saying Parliament ideally should be a cathedral of morals, where conscience of the country sits. Because in this country today, we'll ask ourselves, where does the conscience of the country sit? Does it sit in Parliament? Does it sit in State House? Does it sit in the judiciary? Most probably today you look at the judiciary and say, there's semblance of the conscience of the country there. In Parliament, there is seemingly patronage, absolute patronage. And parliamentarians, because it's a presidential system, they don't know what to do. Like, our hands are tied. And most of those parliamentarians are criminals.
I mean, I beg to differ that parliamentarians find themselves in a point where their hands are tied. Because if you look at the system, let's use the constitution that we have, absolute power does not even belong to the president. Absolute power, one would say, belongs to Parliament, who are the representatives of the people. You get? But that we find ourselves in political bad manners where Parliament itself has allowed itself to have its hands tied. It's not necessarily because the hands are tied, it's because they do not understand their purpose to be in that cathedral of morals. So they have let go the system that protects them, which is the people, and have allowed themselves to be used by the guy who sits in that office that has no power anyway.
So and just on that, so let's analyze Parliament as you're talking about it, and look at Parliament in the sense of what could they do alternately. Look at the political parties process in this country. If the party takes a position and you go against it, what happens?
You're ousted.
You're ousted, or you're punished by your political party. When you're punished by your political party, what happens on the ground? You lose your legitimacy, and which means the next election you're gone. Okay, because you're going against the party, and the party is popular where you come from, you will go home. Now, for us to have a sober framework where things are operating properly in this country, if we reintroduce conscience, mark the word that I'm using, if we reintroduce conscience in this country, and we want to look at issues as the way they should be, not from the way they are. Because, for example, quickly, today if we look at the question of education, why are we having CDA, 40% of it going to bursaries? Why are we having governors having money being given to bursaries? Why are we having MCAs also wanting bursaries? Why are we having the president also having some pocket money where he can give bursaries? So in a sober state, in a sober parliament or a parliamentary system, parliamentarians would sit, because it's their conscience, collective conscience of the nation. They sit and say, instead of having these funds independently, doing these small monies for students, can we have free basic education?
Take that money and fund the thing.
Fund the thing.
Fund the thing. Don't give me it. I don't need patronage. Let's make systems that work. Okay? Let's have the Kenya Education Trust Fund. That in the instance, we have extremely brilliant people and poor who cannot manage. We have a fund that takes care of them, because we are a republic. A republic is a democracy that cares about the least in the community, the most vulnerable in the community. Okay? Now, if we go with the definition that Parliament's hands are tied, why are their hands tied? It's because the system that is there asks Parliament to please look at the house on the hill and do what is best for the house on the hill. Because the stability of the state is vested in the house on the hill. And what happens there?
Stability of the state is not vested in the house, the August house, because one would say...
From what it is today, it is vested in the house on the hill.
Because they've chosen for it to be like that.
Because the system...
Because follow me through that. Follow my train of thought,
Okay.
right?
All right.
Today, members of parliament would not be punished by their political parties based off decisions they make inside parliament. It is based off what they do outside parliament. Because members of parliament are protected by standing orders and by the house they serve based off decisions they make in there. But any other thing that members of parliament do outside that contravene the position of the party, then that is where they get punished. That today members of parliament have forgotten the powers they have, and they think that whatever they do outside as well applies in the house, goes to show that we have individuals in those positions who do not understand their roles or the powers that have been given to them by that house.
And that's why you get it wrong. Now, understand what I'm trying to say here. That parliamentarians are not forgetting their roles. Parliamentarians know their roles. But they're being patronaged by the political parties. At the end of the day, look at America. Look at, any other country that is running a presidential system. When they're electing parliamentarians into parliament, at the end of the day, in the ultimate format, what is a parliamentarian? He's a vote. He's a vote for the party. That when a bill is presented, when an impeachment is occasioned, the parliamentarian is not just him. He's a vote for the party. And by the way, the most painful punishments that happen to parliamentarians is not what they say out of parliament, is what they do inside parliament. Because the ultimate betrayal of the party is when you go against your party in parliament. But you see, in some instances, you'll need to go against your party. When you look at your conscience and a bill has been brought, an impeachment has been brought in parliament, you'll be like, no, gentlemen and ladies, this is not the right thing to do. Let's think independently. Now, look at the process of decision making and understand that the most painful thing that somebody can deny you is not freedom to walk. It's not freedom to do any other thing. It is freedom to think independently. Freedom to make an autonomous decision where you are granted all the decisions or all the information that you need to have to arrive at an independent decision that collectively reflect the independence of thought in parliament. Today, we cannot have independence of thought in parliament because there's political patronage. But in the instance, Dennis, that we have parliamentarians being allowed to think the way they should because they're electing a prime minister, even the political party's conscience will rise. They'll be like, oh, wait a minute. So now we can make decisions as individuals, then go and talk at the party level. Then whatever we agree is what we go and do in parliament. Today, you just need a political party leader of a particular party and X, Y, Z, maybe 3 or 4 political parties.
To say this is our position.
They're political party leaders. Once the political party leader says this is the position, no member is allowed to go against it. Because those things they call NDCs, NECs that they meet at are basically stamps.
Then it's flawed from the beginning.
It's flawed from the beginning.
It's flawed from the beginning because in parties where they followed what the idea of a political... And this is the thing. If you adopt the method, then you should at least follow the methodology.
Exactly.
That a political party is meant to push an ideology, and that we say, no matter what happens, you wake us up in the middle of the night, the ideology can spew from our mouths and we remember what it is that we're fighting for. It could be an economy that works. It could be a social welfare system that works. It could be focusing on the environment. It could be focusing on social justice. But those are the ideologies upon which a party has been based on.
So let's
now,
look at,
the problem, it sounds like what you're saying is that parties have just coalesced around somebody. And that's the reason why you will not be able to get into parliament and find that somebody's pushing an agenda because from the very beginning it was flawed.
Exactly.
Is that the thing?
Exactly. And that's what I'm saying. In a parliamentary system, the electorate will now know that, hey, the decision you're making of electing a parliamentarian is not just because this parliamentarian is aligned to person X. It is because this parliamentarian is going to represent you, the sovereign. Is going to elect a prime minister or possibly will be a prime minister. So you're not just going to elect any Tom, Dick and Harry. Today, and perhaps let me say this, no pun intended to these parliamentarians. If you compare this parliament, this one we have today, I don't know if it's the 13th or whatever, compared to the one of Otiato Marende.
Yeah.
This is a joke. This is Sunday school. of
Sunday
law.
school might be better.
Sunday school may be better, actually.
That's structured, actually.
Yeah. All right. But this one here, it is hero worship. It has turned into a choir. That's why the people went on and impeached this parliament. In a proper structured format, you will have people, the electorate, being aware that, hey, we are electing a person and not just a party. The person must be of quality before we look at the party is coming from. And even the parties will want to elect people who are of substance. Let's look at all the democracies where parliamentary system is working, and especially Israel and Westminster. Okay? In Israel, somebody may want to argue, oh, parliamentary system will have instability, we'll be having snap elections here and there. If you don't work, the people today are saying, don't vote for these parliamentarians who are today in parliament because they disobeyed us. In a parliamentary system, you don't have to wait. We'll go into a snap election.
You wake up in the morning.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the parliament is not agreeing. They go into a snap election. So what happens? Their conscience is awakened that we have to move. We cannot have consensus paralysis. We have to agree. We have to act. The people are watching. We are acting on behalf of the people, not on our own behalves. Today, we're having a parliament that is acting on its own behalf and serving the interests of its masters. And most of them, by the way, are business people who have gone there to look for tenders and who have gone to protect some selfish interests, which some of us are aware of, wash. Some of us are aware of. They've done some dirty things when they were in government. Now, because if you're out of government, you'll be ostracized. You must be in parliament so that you have a vote. That vote of yours, you can brandish it when they come for you. Hey, you know, don't try me. I will vote against you. And akufinya, you know. So we must have a different view of how we are talking about our election processes and how we're talking about what Kenyans truly desire for themselves: political stability, solving the issue of the ethnic representation question. Because in a parliamentary system, a Mijikenda will become a prime minister because of merit. In a parliamentary system, we could elect a Digo, we could elect a Kisi, who, by the way, are very excellent. We could elect a Kamba, we could elect a Teso to become a what? A prime minister. Who then oversees government, or who then runs government. And he is subjected to proper questioning day in, day out on the floor of parliament.
The issues that brought some of the countries of which you give examples this morning were so clear in their minds. The issues were so clear in their mind that either they could not allow this kind of thing to happen, or they wanted to be sure that they were protected. So they were involved in their governance from the very beginning as people. Would that have been the reason why then it was easier, and I want to use that word very cautiously, easier for them then to set up a system whereby they were able to say, this is the system because never again. This is the system that we are going to follow. No matter who comes in tomorrow, we are going to ensure that you follow this. You can have your political affiliations, you can have your political thoughts, thinking, who wants to get ahead, because this filibustering that we're talking about, everybody does it. It doesn't matter whether you're in America, Japan, wherever, everybody does it. However, the system is sacrosanct, and we will say, we will not allow corruption. We will call it out, that the president will not come and lord him or herself over us in terms of how they operate, that we are all thinking and we're working towards a common goal. Now, the politics comes into place whereby it's based on an ideology. The Republicans will not go in a certain direction. The Democrats will not go in a certain direction because that is what they believe. However, they will work within the system to ensure that their ideologies come out to play. Could that be what's missing? If that is even an example that you want to use?
Yes, I would say yes.
Yeah.
Because one, in Kenya, what is our basic foundation? Our basic foundation is identity. From where we come from. Hunger is one. But even in hunger, we think I'm hungry as a Luo.
No, I'm just hungry.
Yeah, I'm hungry as a Luo. I'm not hungry as a Kenyan. I'm hungry as a Luo.
People are still thinking like that?
People think like that.
Odhiambo.
The basic formation of our politics, or of our identity, is politics of ethnicity. In fact, clanism. Clanism, do. If you sink into the deep ends of gubernatorial contest in this country today, you will find that however high they are, people are looking at themselves from the clan level. Now, how does that then come to what you're talking about? Once people still look at themselves at the level of identity, then it means we cannot just superimpose or import another kind of democracy and think it will work for us. In America, they're almost homogeneous. We know they're Native Americans, then we know there are people who are coming in from all over. In fact, America is a country of immigrants, coming in from all over, and they have to align on ideologies. In Kenya, do people align on ideologies?
No.
People align on identity.
Identity.
Now, the identity is what? Tribalism, not ideological identity. It is tribalistic or ethnical identity. Now, when they are working on ethnical identities, then it means for you to form a proper political outfit, it must sit within those confines and defines. Now, when they go to parliament, they're still going to vote as what? As ethnicities. In terms of the presidential system, they're looking at, wanataka kutoa president, wanataka kutoa deputy president. Mtu wetu. It is no longer about our issues as a country. It's about mtu wetu. People are not looking at what works for everybody in the state. They're looking at what works for me or what works for my people.
So how do you change that? Because essentially you're saying that you have two systems of government that can be employed within a democracy.
Yes.
And if you're saying that one, from what you're saying in Kenya or in a lot of African countries at the moment, that doesn't really work because the political head will be the president. And it is what they want at the time that will be filtered through the different points of representation.
Right.
So how do you change that? Because clearly it doesn't work.
Good. So how you change that is this. By the time we move to the parliamentary system, which is something that we have to do, and actually let me say why we are moving to a parliamentary system. It has to happen. Why we have to move to a parliamentary system is because we were in a political freedoms era. We were clamoring for political freedoms. Now, there's been a hangover and an overlap of leaders and ideologies. Political freedom champions or freedom fighters are still existing around economic freedoms. The two cannot sit together. These are proof from a bygone era. In an economic freedom era or an economic reform era, you need people who are thinkers, who understand the economy, who are going there for the people, who are not going there to say, people are being ostracized out of government. It's about, is there merit? Because economy does not appreciate tribalism. Economy appreciates money in the bank. Things working out. Are the trains working? Is the transport system working? Is the hospital working? These things have nothing to do with what? With the tribes. These things simply need people who can reason and develop policies or laws that work for the people. Now, this moment, once the collective conscience of the country is sensitized, that now we are moving to the economic freedom space, or we are moving to a position where we are a little bit more mature, because right now, if you look at Kenya and democracies around Africa, Kenya could be the second or the third, if not the first, in terms of maturity. So it means we can sustain the shocks of political freedoms. It is already there. If you play around with the political freedoms, the courts are there. If you play around, Article 1 of the Constitution gives us the power as the people to move into the street and cause civic disobedience, and you will not govern anything. You will become ungovernable. So you must agree with us. Now, in that sense, now we move to understand that, hey, in the question of economic freedoms, in the question of the common good of every human being in this country, one thing that is important and popular that we must appreciate is we need people who are thinkers. We can elect a Muindi, we can elect a white man, we can elect Ndu from Nigeria to come and represent us in Kabondo Kasipul, where I come from. Okay? Because Ndu, being married there or staying there or being a citizen who has been naturalized and is speaking proper issues, can go to parliament and actually properly articulate our issues, the issues of the people.
Yeah. Would you reckon that the country is at that point at the moment? Because fine, you'd argue that the country still is at that point where we're thinking through our clans, through our ethnic space. But now that we look at the alternative way or structure of governing, or what would make things work in the country, perhaps we need to change that. Are Kenyans having these conversations? Are we pushing this conversation towards that point where merit takes credence as opposed to mtu wetu, we want to protect our person, we want to protect our resources.
And that brings me to the point which I started with Ndu, where I was talking about Kakamega and the ills that are happening there. You look at whatever happened. I don't know whether you guys are aware that yesterday a school bus having children in it was attacked because somebody wants to be governor there. Okay? And it's somebody who, when he comes here, he talks the best of his, at the top of his voice. Okay? The former senator there. And his people attacked a car that was carrying children that he thought these people belonged to Governor Barasa, which is not true, because they're doing politics of identity. Politics of who ni mtu wetu. We want this fellow to become the governor of Kakamega. Now we operate with violence. If you've seen clips online, this fellow has people carrying rungus and shouting against the sitting governor. That's not how things should work. And beating people literally in the streets because they're doing politics of what? Of identity. Ni mtu wetu tunataka kuwe pale. If we went for merit, and we want to truly talk about merit in terms of even governors or even MPs, we will shift from that thinking of, let us not look at Dennis Aseto because he's a Luo, I'm going to have him there.
What must we do for that shift?
What we must do is one, actually there are two ways. One, we will face a rebirth. And there's no rebirth that is painless. Rebirths are painful. Very painful. And rebirths simply mean we go into a revolution and our conscience is pricked and say, oh, wait, we've killed 1 million people, like Rwanda. Because we were talking about this tribe should not lead. It's a common talk that is going around this country right now. And NCIC is just quiet. This person should not lead us. Or this tribe has overeaten. They need to get out.
So we can do it.
We can't do that. We can't do that. What we have to agree on is you, and SpiceFM has been doing this for a long time. My starting of watching SpiceFM was because you guys are having proper discussions that elevate the thinking of the commoner, the thinking of the elite, so that we can have a discussion, unlike any other radio station that simply talks about sex in the morning. Here, you've been channeling these kinds of conversation, and today we're having it. If the media generally accepts that we have a problem, and the media appreciates that the media sits beyond the terms of parliamentarians and leaders, then we know that the actual power in the country sits with the media. The actual power actually sits with the media because it's an influence space. We have to reshape how people are thinking. And we have to help them see how we can figure out this issue. Because today we could be talking here and somebody will be dismissing and saying, parliamentary system for what? Because for them, what they're chasing now is legacy in terms of the money they'll pocket in their pockets or in their banks. But the reality is that in 2-3 years, when we are having a political crisis and people are in the streets, they'll say, oh, do you remember Ndu, Aseto and Odhiambo were talking about a parliamentary system? We need to go for that. So the parliamentarians, the people first need to be sensitized enough to know that, hey, the system has shifted. The stabilizer who was Raila Odinga is now not there. Without him, these politicians, as we see them, are still talking about their tribes and their homes. We need somebody who can talk properly about issues. And these issues, probably, we're not going to have it around a presidential system. Our issues are going to be discussed in Parliament. Now, let us drive an initiative. Let the lawyers, the political players, who are conscious enough, be bold enough and come out and say, hey, guys, let's do this. Let us shift our constitution. Because the constitution can be amended. The constitution can be redone afresh. And you say we are shifting from a presidential system because it is not working.
It's obvious that some of the ways to have change is to start to acknowledge that there is a need for it in the first place, and to have these conversations indeed, and to move, as we say, to move the needle. It is necessary for us to talk about these things because we can lament forever and say, oh, well, Parliament should have done this, they didn't. The President should have done, they didn't. Well, there's a way in which they can. Odhiambo Otieno, thank you very much for joining us this morning, starting off the week in this manner. We'll keep talking. We'll keep giving the examples. We'll keep pricking that conscience. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.